everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and today we are going to be talking about houseplants that you should buy small. So this is a follow-up to a video that I made a few weeks ago talking about houseplants that you should buy big. I am gonna be honest, I totally did not expect that video to be as popular as it was. So I'm excited to talk about the opposite side of that video and discuss the plants that you should buy small and maybe save some money because they either grow really fast or they get really big and it's better just to have them small at the beginning. Also, this video is sponsored by Let's Get Checked. I'm super excited to talk about them a little bit later in the video, but first, let's talk about these plants. So number one on my list undoubtedly is the Monstera deliciosa. This is the plant that is the big iconic houseplant with these split leaves, and it is a plant that grows so fast, if under proper conditions, of course. And it's really wild to watch it grow because it goes from this tiny little baby leaf to these huge, insane statement leaves that really just leave your jaw on the floor. I mean, honestly, seeing my plants go from tiny, tiny leaves to these huge leaves with splits is so exciting. And I think honestly, that's a huge reason why you should buy them small, because they do start out looking so different from the mature form. There's a lot of houseplants that the mature form and the immature form don't look that much different, but still it's exciting to see them mature. This is one that truly is so different from baby to, I don't know, adult teenager plant, and it's just really cool to see that happen. Now, just for some perspective, this is a baby Monstera deliciosa, and if you've never seen them this small, it might be a little bit jarring because it's crazy to think that a plant that big and magnificent could ever start off this little. But yeah, I did actually at one point grow a Monstera plant from a leaf no bigger than this one right here to one that is bigger than my head, my face, everything, and it has splits now. And honestly, seeing the plant go from this juvenile form to the first leaf it ever had with splits on it called fenestrations, it was the most exciting moment of my life so far. As far as houseplants go. I mean, I did get married, so I think that's like a little bit more exciting than this. And if you wanted to grow faster, you want to see those results pretty quickly, I would suggest putting it on a pole or a plank or just some sort of support so that the plant has something to grow onto, because Monstera deliciosa likes to climb. So in nature, they're usually climbing up trees, and that's how they get really big so fast. So if you are wanting to get those big leaves faster, give them something to latch onto and they will love you. And I feel like I should say before we get too far into this video that these plants are fast growers to me and to a lot of people that I've seen online. How a plant grows really depends on the situation that it's living in, and it goes without saying that if a plant has a lot of humidity, a good watering schedule, I don't want to say good watering schedule, but they're getting consistent watering and they're getting a lot of good light that they need, that plant is going to grow pretty steadily. For the plants that I mentioned in the last video, even with all of those things, sometimes those plants are extremely slow even still. But there were still people in the comments who were like, I totally disagree with you. This plant and this plant are super fast growers for me. And that really is just how it goes, because it's really difficult to generalize a houseplant and say, well, this really is a fast grower and this one isn't. But I'm gonna say in general, I just wanna say in general, these are plants that grow really fast for me and have a lot of really good results without me having to do a ton. The next plant that I think that you should just buy small is the Philodendron Splendid, which is the cross between the Philodendron verrucosum and the Philodendron melanochrysum. So that plant, in my experience with that plant, it is so much easier than the verrucosum on its own or the melanochrysum on its own. I don't know what it is about crossing these plants that makes a plant that is super hardy and grows really fast. Neither of these plants, the melano or the vero, I would not consider those plants hardy by any means. Actually, I've had both of them on separate occasions, and they were, number one, the verrucosum is a spider mite magnet, and the melanochrysum loves to put out runners and tiny baby leaves unless it has something super substantial and wet to climb on. I am actually kind of curious to get another one and try growing it on a pole to see if that would be a different situation, but in my experience, they just put out little leaves and I don't know how to fix that. I see some people with huge melanochrysum leaves and I don't get how they're doing it. So anyway, point is the Philodendron Splendid grows really, really fast. I had it in my greenhouse cabinet for a short while actually before it outgrew it. Within, I think maybe it was a month it outgrew it. It was putting out new leaves almost every single week, which was so exciting, but it got really tall really fast. The leaves are not incredibly large, but I think that if it had something to climb on, which now it's on a piece of wood, I think now that it has that, it will start growing faster, but I am wanting to do some chop and prop to it because I feel like it's very easy to propagate. I actually got it as a cutting from somebody else, which was very, very kind of them. It was a gift. And it grew really, really well, and it had big, beautiful leaves. And then it did suddenly start putting out small leaves, but I think that's because it didn't have anything to climb onto. So as long as it has something to climb, it will continue putting out bigger and bigger leaves. But if you're okay with the smaller leaves, I guess you don't have to let it climb on something, but it is fun to see the leaves continue to get bigger and bigger. And I am going to be chopping and propping it this summer, and I feel super confident about its abilities to root. So I'll keep you updated on that journey. I keep looking over at it, sorry. But it is one of my favorite plants in my collection, and definitely one that grew very, very fast, especially when it had great lighting and lots of humidity. As I said earlier, this video is sponsored by Let's Get Checked, and if you haven't heard of them before, their mission is to make professional health testing accessible and to ensure that no individual ever puts off health testing due to not being able to or not wanting to visit a healthcare provider. They have tests from anything from sexual health, women's health, men's health, general wellness, and COVID-19, and I personally went for the female hormone test because it will tell me what my hormones are looking like on a broad scale, and then also what my fertility is looking like too. So how it works is you will go onto their website and order the test that you want, and it will be delivered to you in discreet packaging with next day delivery. After that point, it's time to collect your sample, and there's a lot of videos on their website that will tell you how to collect samples specifically for your test so that you do it correctly. Once your sample arrives to the laboratory, you'll get confidential results in 3 to 5 days on your portal on their website. Then your results will be reviewed by a physician, and a nurse will give you a consultation over the phone to sort of explain everything that's going on. And if you are in need of a prescription, the physician can prescribe you a prescription to be sent to your pharmacy of your choice. So if you are interested in checking out Let's Get Checked, you can use the link down in the description box below and use the code Becca30 for 30% off a test. This is a really great company with an awesome mission, so I hope that you'll check them out. The next plant that you should buy small is the Philodendron Selloum, and actually let me get the name that it is now. Okay, I'm just gonna read it. The Thamatophyllum bipinnatifidum. That feels like a throwback to my early YouTube days where I can't say any names of plants, but I will have it on the screen so that you know the visual of what it is, but it is mostly known as a Philodendron Selloum before it was reclassified. So that plant grows very, very fast, and it gets really big really fast as well, in my experience. So I actually got the one that I have off of someone who just, the plant got too big for them and they didn't know what to do with it, so I offered to take it, and it was just one of those lucky situations where I happened to see it and complimented the plant, and they were like, do you want it? So it was actually kind of lucky that I just happened to be in this person's house in that moment. But they're one of those plants that can get very, very big. And if you've ever seen them in a conservatory or a botanical garden, or even if you're lucky enough to see them just in nature, they are huge. And I was actually at the Garfield Park Conservatory, and I think that it was one of these. I think it was a selloum. It was living like on top of this huge trellis situation that you can walk under, and the huge aerial roots were coming down and just sitting on the ground, and that's what the plant was drawing its like water and nutrients from. It was absolutely insane. It had barely any soil. So that's also a plant that will just get really big really fast given the right circumstances, of course. It's very beautiful. It's a really nice plant just to have in a corner, to have like lots of green space. It's a plant that can actually grow outside in the shade if you wanted, and actually I think I know somebody who has it in full sun. So it's definitely very hardy and can handle a lot of light. So I think the more light you give it, the better the growth will look. It'll be a little bit more compact and not as stringy. If you are wanting to have that plant, it's a really good one to bring outside for the summer. And actually somebody requested a video about what plants will do best outside. So let me know down below if you want to see that video too, and I'll be happy to make that one when I move my plants outside too. Okay, I gotta get moving because I'm talking a lot. So the next plant on my list is the spider plant. So I talked about the spider plant in my February favorites video because it is just such a classic plant that I love so much, and it is definitely one that grows very fast and puts out babies very fast. So if you even wanted to make the plant more full, you could probably take the babies off of the mother plant, propagate them, and just pot them back in with the mom, and then you've got more plants just like coming out from the pot. I think that's a really great way to make your plants more full, is chopping and propping and planting it back into the pot. That is actually one of the ways that I've gotten a lot of my plants to be fuller and bigger, because I'm a big fan of having less plants but bigger plants. I just feel like it makes a space look a little bit less crowded if you have like less pots but bigger plants, which is a little bit funny considering how many pots I have behind me right here, like in this whole situation, but I think it's okay. So anyway, the spider plant is a really great option. It's very affordable because it's one of the most basic houseplants, and I actually am in a school of thought where I don't think that you should even have to pay for a spider plant, because there's probably someone in your area who is willing to give you a little spiderette. That's what the babies are called. So just something to think about. You could definitely buy those ones small and propagate it, plant it back into the pot if you want the like super full look, but it will eventually start putting out babies and start cascading and look really big and beautiful. The next plant that you should just buy small are just in general cane begonias. I find that cane begonias are very easy to propagate and they grow really fast. So I've got a little collection of cane begonias. If you saw my begonia collection video, most of those are cane begonias. Actually, I think all of them are cane begonias. I don't have any other like Rex or anything like that, but all of them grow very fast if they're given the right conditions. I do find them to be a bit more thirsty, so if mine don't grow that fast, it's probably just due to neglect. But in times where I was like very adamant about making sure they're watered, making sure they're getting plenty of light, they just take off. And also really nice, they're very easy to propagate. As long as you're cutting below like a leaf node, it will root and it will just be a great plant. The next plant is the Fittonia, and I don't talk about Fittonia too much on my channel, or maybe I do, but it is one of my favorite houseplants. Dare I say my favorite houseplant? Every time I say that it's my favorite, I get a lot of hate just because so many people don't like Fittonia. But if I had to put a label on it, I would definitely say that the Fittonia is my favorite. So yeah, because of that, I will say that you can definitely buy them small. Number one, just honestly, it might not live that long because Fittonia tend to be a little bit temperamental if you're not watching them and caring for them like as they want. They are very dramatic. They will droop really quickly if they're not getting water that they need. But that is actually the reason that I love them so much, because they are so vocal. I love when plants are vocal about their needs, but like when they're just being vague and not really giving me the messaging that I need to know that they're in need of something, those are the plants that tend to not live very long in my collection, or like I'm actually shocked that they're still alive. I'm looking at my ficus thinking that like ficus don't really tell you that they're super thirsty until things have really taken a turn. They will droop, of course. Like a lot of plants will droop when they're thirsty, but some of them are just like way more obvious about it, like the Fittonia, for example. So it is a very fast grower, and actually in nature it is ground cover, so it spreads quite a lot. And I have found that as long as I'm giving it lots of light, it will continue to grow very compactly, so you might not notice how much it's actually grown. Unless you look back at photos to see what it actually looked like then, it's sort of difficult to see, like as compared to a Monstera deliciosa. It's very obvious when there's a new leaf on that plant, but with the Fittonia, it's more difficult to see. So anyway, it's one of those that'll kind of sneak up on you and it's like, oh wow, that plant is actually pretty big now. So I would say that if you can keep it long enough, they definitely are fast growers, and they're very, very rewarding plants if you can keep them alive. But I will say they're very cheap at most like plant stores. So if you do find yourself, like if you've killed one, just go buy a new one. It's really not worth it to try to like save it. I mean, I did try that before, and it took a really long time to even get to the point where it was putting out even a few leaves. And maybe if I put it in a humidity dome, that would have been a different situation, but just go buy a new one. I mean, I can't tell you how many Photonia that I've killed, and it's still my favorite plant because it's so beautiful. And I just got over like the sadness of killing them. Like each of my Photonia that I've had, I remember them, and like I loved them all for different reasons, but if I kill one again, I'm just like, okay, well, guess I'll just go get a new one, you know? Okay, the next plant is the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. This is a plant that I could not pronounce for a very long time, and thankfully I'm able to now. So the Rhaphi is a really, really fast growing plant. I think especially if you get, well, I don't know, I've never had a non-tissue culture variety. The one that I got was tissue culture, which basically just means cloning. It's a way to propagate a plant by using like plant cells and just creating a plant from that, like in a lab situation. Like, I don't think that I would be able to find the materials to do tissue culture in my home. It's really just reserved to like large growers and like labs. So just a little bit of backstory if you're not familiar with what tissue culture is. But anyway, so the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that I got was a tissue culture, and it had very classic like tissue culture characteristics. There's lots of literature online about tissue culture, Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, like even on Instagram if you wanted, because it was one of the first plants that I saw that was widely available because of tissue culture, and the more juvenile form of that plant does look slightly different than a non-tissue culture version. So when the tissue culture is young, it looks very different than when it grows older, because as it gets older, it takes on more of the traditional Rhaphidophora tetrasperma characteristics, like rounder, really deep green leaves. Anyway, so it just looks a little bit different. The tissue culture is a little bit longer, a little bit more bluish, and it's just slightly different in that way. So, but it grows really, really fast, especially if it has something to climb on. I don't find that mine really like latches on to something, but as long as it has a support, it's very, very fast. I've seen people grow them in like a hanging basket, and I've also seen people just put them up a trellis or something like that. So here's mine, and I just want to show you the aerial roots. I have never seen these roots. Here's one right here, and I've never seen these roots like latch on to anything. So I've really just trellised it as if it was like a begonia or something like that. Not really expecting it to latch on, but just giving it something to climb. Lots of people will just have them like going around like a door frame or just up a wall or something like that. And they're also very easy to propagate because of those aerial roots. So if you're interested in buying one of those, definitely just get a little guy from the store. And the last plant on my list of plants that you should just buy small is just in general Tradescantia. So Tradescantia, there's a lot of different versions of this plant, lots of different colors, lots of different leaf shapes, but in general they do all look quite similar in their structure. So they grow very, very fast in my experience, but they also drop their older leaves and they don't look that pretty long term. So I would definitely suggest doing the chop and prop thing for these relatively often, just because they do get those really like ugly bare stems. Mine is sort of going through that right now, and I'm not sure how to feel about it, but it has grown super, super fast in adverse lighting situations. So this shelf right here is probably the most indirect light in this plant room, because it's not getting any, like, it's getting a little bit of the skylights and it's getting the southern exposure, but it never gets any sun rays on it. So I would say that it is probably the lowest light situation in my sunroom. I had my Tradescantia Nanook sitting on here, probably in this spot, for a very long time, and it was growing a lot. And I actually chopped and propped it already because it was just very, very beautiful, and I wanted the pot to be more full. So definitely if you want a full pot of those, I don't typically see them being, actually no, that's a lie. I do see them sold as like full pots, but not as often as I see them sold as just like little 4-inch planters. So definitely buy that one small if you can, because it's super easy to chop and prop. And actually I just cut it and stick it right back in the soil. I don't even put it in water to pre-root it or anything. It's just very easy to just stick back in and go on with life, and it will root and start putting out new growth. All right, you guys, that is all I've got for this video. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me talk about plants to buy small, because yeah, I think that there's a lot of plants that you can just save your money on and buy little. That's a big reason why people buy plants small, is to save money, and I totally understand. I totally respect that. It's just certain plants are better to buy big, and other plants you could totally just buy them small and it's not a big deal. So I will link below the plants to buy big video down below if you didn't see it yet. And I think that's all I have to say. So thank you so much for watching. There's been a fungus gnat just like flying around in my face this whole video and I'm really annoyed. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Let's Get Checked down below in the description box and use my code Becca30 for 30% off. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Also, if you didn't know, I have a Patreon and I'd love to invite you to check it out. I'm putting out lots of fun bonus plant content and polls, and there's a Discord community that's super fun. I will have that linked in the description box below.